I go, I'm putting on. Putting on, putting on. Everywhere I go, I'm putting on. Putting on, putting on. Everywhere I go, I'm putting on. Putting on. Where you from?
Welcome to Popcorn Sports on the Popcorn Entertainment Network. I'm your host, Mike Kyle, and today we are diving back into our series, Why You Should Root for Every Team in the NBA. I, of course, am not alone as we look at the Orlando Magic today. I am joined by Philip Rossman-Reich of OrlandoMagicDaily.com, also host of the Locked On Magic podcast. Philip, how you doing today?
I'm doing really, really well. It's college football season, which means basketball is right around the corner.
Exactly. We're all looking forward to that. As obviously, we are in week 2 of the college football season as we are recording this. But my first question for you, and the first question I asked all of my guests, is how did you become a fan of the Orlando Magic?
I grew up in Orlando. I'm of, I guess, what the Magic tried to call at one point the Magic generation. So I grew up with it. I was probably among the first generation of Orlando residents that grew up with the team. And so it was really always my hometown team. My parents had season tickets, and we would go to the games all the time. I was really coming of age during the Shaq and Penny years in the mid '90s. Kept on going through the Tracy McGrady years as I learned more about the game as well. And so I've always just been a huge fan of the Magic. As I started writing more, I naturally started writing about the Magic, and that's I've just always been a fan of the team and a big cheerleader of my city. And so the Orlando Magic are obviously a big part of that.
Right, and you can follow him on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. And so let's just get into some general overview of the Orlando Magic. They joined the NBA in 1989. They are called the Magic in reference to the atmosphere of the city. That's one of the key proponents why they chose that name. Their colors are blue, white, and black. 14 playoff appearances, one of the few teams with 0 championships, although they do have a lot of success, and we will get to that in just a few minutes. And they play in the Southeast Division with Charlotte, Miami, Atlanta, and Washington. But let's recap last season, because it started off really well, and then it turned really quick, really fast. So they finished the year 25-57, missing the playoffs, but they did get the number 6 pick overall, and they took center Mo Bamba out of Texas. What can you make out of last season for me?
Last season was a really frustrating one because, like you said, they got off to such a scorching start at 8-4, and I think a lot of us kind of knew that wasn't going to last. The shooting was definitely unsustainable. But I don't think anyone saw the team falling apart as much as they did. And injuries had a big role to play in that. The Magic lost more than 200 games to injury. Jonathan Isaac, the prized rookie from last year, the number 6 overall pick in last year's draft, rolled his ankle in November and could never really seem to get healthy the rest of the season. He played toward the end of the year, but the Magic were very, very cautious with his return. And he was a big impactor, especially on the defensive end. And obviously a rookie. His development was a little bit stunted because he was injured. Terrence Ross broke his leg. Had a fracture in his leg around Thanksgiving. Didn't come back until the very end of the season. And then there were just nagging injuries throughout. Nikola Vucevic breaking his hand. Aaron Gordon missing time for various reasons in his breakout season. There were just a lot of things that seemed to come together that prevented the Magic from reaching their potential. And so, but at the same time, it's still a team that definitely has some serious flaws and definitely had some struggles and wasn't a team that a lot of people expected to take a big step forward. But I would also argue that they were probably ultimately better than their 25-win record showed. But injuries were a big factor. You can't use that as an excuse. Everyone has to deal with them. The Magic, though, suffered a lot of injuries that I think hurt them in the long run.
What do you think is going to be the one turnaround spot in their game this year, whether it be on offense or on defense, or just give me one aspect you think is really going to turn the corner this year?
I think this year we're going to see the defense take a little bit of a step forward. And it's not just because Mo Bamba is going to be on the team and everyone has big expectations for what he can do on the defensive end. I think a big thing that we're going to see is Jonathan Isaac back on the floor. When the Magic had Jonathan Isaac on the floor, their defense was at least league average. I mean, if you look at the off-court numbers, which, has a lot of noise in them, the Magic played their best defense as a team with Jonathan Isaac on the floor. And the numbers support this, but you can watch him play, go back and watch some highlights. He had a game against the Toronto Raptors, I think in February, March, where he had 5 steals. And you could just clearly see the impact he made defensively. He told, I think, Slam Magazine or Dime Magazine that defense was really easy for him. And that's crazy to say coming out of a 19, 20-year-old rookie, because defense is usually the hardest thing to grasp in the NBA. Right. And so I think that bringing him back into the fold, having a healthy group, Aaron Gordon, Jonathan Simmons are both have great defensive reputations. I think Nikola Vucevic is even better defensively than people give him credit for, although definitely has his shortcomings, and Mo Bamba is waiting in the wings to replace him at some point. But I think this team's defense is going to be a lot better. Steve Clifford is a great defensive coach. He had top 10 defenses in Charlotte for most of his 5-year tenure, and so I expect Magic to be a much better defensive team this year.
All right, now let's kind of keep this going. Let's kind of break down this year's roster, right? So we already mentioned Mo Bamba. You bring back superstar Aaron Gordon, who a lot of people have just been waiting to have that breakout season where he really just takes that next step forward. Jonathan Isaac, as you mentioned, is coming back off injury. You have Vucevic, Terrence Ross, Jerry and Grant. You guys signed DJ Augustine, drafted Melvin Frazier as well in the second round, Evan Fournier. What can you make of this roster for me?
It's still an incomplete roster. There's no doubt about it. Right now the starter is DJ Augustin. There's a lot of websites and a lot of blogs posting about the top players at each position, and routinely DJ Augustin is rated as probably the worst starting point guard in the league. And I think that's a little bit unfair because I think he's better than people give him credit for. But I would also agree that he's probably not best as a starting point guard, and the Magic's depth behind him isn't very good. They got Isaiah Briscoe, who was playing in Estonia last year. And then Jerry and Grant as well. So they'll be battling out for point guard minutes, and Troy Copain as well on a 2-way contract. Orlando's got some serious holes and some serious flaws. Their shooting isn't going to be fantastic. Evan Fournier's probably the best shooter on the team. Evan Fournier and DJ Augustin are the two best shooters on the team probably. But they don't have a lot of floor spacing or really creation off the dribble. They're going to be relying a lot on ball movement and player movement to get open. They're hoping that Aaron Gordon can take another step in his game. Maybe he can be a better passer and playmaker, although I don't think he'll make that leap so much in 1 year. Fournier, I think, has taken strides as a passer, but he's not a great passer either. And so it's still a roster that's kind of transitioning. They got talented guys. They got guys who can score. Evan Fournier averaged 17 points per game. He's increased his scoring average every single year of his career. He's a better player than I think a lot of people give him credit for. Aaron Gordon is poised for another big breakout season as he continues to improve. Nikola Vucevic is a reliable offensive option. But there's no sort of transcendent player, I think, to take this team over the top. It's still a team that's transitioning away from players who are from the old management regime to the new management regime that's taken over for the last 2 years. And I think that's why you see them drafting guys like Mo Bamba, Melvin Frazier, Wesley Iwundu from last year, even adding Aaron Gordon and Jonathan Isaac into that mix. Those are the kind of players they're looking for, and this team just doesn't have a lot of those guys quite yet.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that jumps out on the page to me is that Orlando is loaded in the front court, but their back court lacks. And then even coming off of that, it's like, where does the scoring come from this year?
Yeah, I think that's the big question. It's been a big question for the Magic really since Dwight Howard left, and even somewhat when Dwight Howard was there. I mean, I think you go back even to the 2009 summer when the Magic decided to let Hedo Turkoglu walk in free agency. They brought in Vince Carter essentially to be that perimeter scorer, to be that guy that initiated offense, especially late in games when they couldn't go to Dwight Howard. And so finding, really, since Tracy McGrady left in 2004, the Magic have been searching for a premier perimeter scorer. And obviously, they're still searching a little bit for that. I mean, Jameer Nelson did it for a little bit. Vince Carter did it for the year and a half that he was there. But they're still searching for that consistent offensive option, kind of a quote-unquote Kobe guy, one-on-one guy, if you will. Orlando's still searching for sure. I think Aaron Gordon wants to fill that role. Evan Fournier at times can fill that role. You can go into the post for Nikola Vucevic, but there's no one guy that's going to strike fear into any team's hearts. The Magic are going to have to really rely on player movement and ball movement to get open shots, and then they've got to make shots, which is something that I think the NBA is going to ask them to prove again this year without quality shooters on the floor.
Right, and I think let's kind of hang on. I'm thinking, all right, here's what we can do. I want you to give me like two guys that you're really looking forward to watching this season because there are so many question marks. Like if Orlando wants to win games, they're gonna have to play as a team, but they are gonna have to have at least one or two guys step up almost on a nightly basis. So give me two players that you think can do that.
I think the two obvious guys are two of the bigger players on this roster. I mean, this is a growing roster, so there's going to be some hiccups and some development pains in the process. But the two guys that I look at most are Jonathan Isaac. Didn't get to see a lot of him last year, only playing 27 games. Like I said, he makes a huge defensive impact. But his offensive game still has to develop a little bit. He's still learning how to be a better shooter. And we didn't really get to see him play much offense last year. I think last year, because of the injuries, they just kind of threw him out there, didn't really give him much offensive goals. in Summer League, we saw what he could do a little bit offensively. He was working the post against smaller players and hitting really tough fadeaways. And while I think he was focused a little bit too much on his mid-range game and struggled to shoot a little bit, they were giving him the freedom to take shots and kind of encouraging him to be a little bit selfish, which I don't think is in Jonathan Isaac's nature. So I'm really interested to see what Jonathan Isaac looks like within the context of this team and how much he's grown on that end. The other guy to watch, and it feels like this is a cop-out because I'm talking about the two biggest guys on the team, Aaron Gordon. What does he do for an encore after last year's breakout season? Averaging 17 points per game, career highs across the board, shooting better than 30% from beyond the arc for the first time in his career. What's the next step? What's the next level in his game? Last year, he played like he was the superstar. It really felt like he was playing the way he thinks a superstar should play, and that led to some growing pains. He was isolating a little bit too much. His field goal percentage went down, especially in the last 20 or so games of the season. But I'm really interested to see what he does to take his game to the next level, because obviously it's one thing to do it one year. What makes a player truly great is that you do it every single year, and I think that's a big, big test for Aaron Gordon this season.
So I want to stick with Aaron Gordon for a second, just because Aaron Gordon, obviously the Magic for the past 6 or so years have just been in a downward spiral. But throughout all of that, Aaron Gordon has just been the guy to stick around and hang out. I feel like the Orlando fan base have really grasped onto him. So what does Aaron Gordon mean for that team, for that fan base even?
I think, I mean, when you look at Magic history, this is the longest stretch the Magic have gone without an All-Star. And so I think Magic fans have latched on to whichever player they think could be the next star. It was Victor Oladipo for a while. It was Tobias Harris even for a little while. It's now Aaron Gordon. You kind of just go down the draft list. Okay, Victor Oladipo didn't quite work out. They ended up trading him. Whether that was a good decision or not is certainly debatable. And then they went to Aaron Gordon. He was the next guy on the list. And so I think Magic fans see a guy who has shown clear flashes. It isn't just that he was a nice energy player like he was his first few years. Now he looks like a real player. Now he looks like a guy that you can build at least some offense around. I don't know if you should build an entire team around him, but you can build something around him or some things around him. And so I think what Magic fans are looking for is that little bit of hope, that little bit of this is the guy that's going to lead us to the playoffs next. This is the guy that's going to take us from where we're at now to a much better place in the future. And so I think that's what the Magic fans see in Aaron Gordon. They see a guy who, A, is marketable. Obviously, the slam dunk contest was kind of his coming out party. He was in Uncle Drew this summer. Seems like a very, very good kid. He's 22 years old, so I can still call him a kid. He is a very good kid. He's a very mature guy. When you deal with him in the media, he's someone that you would want to be the face of your franchise. Now he just has to go out and prove it on the court. And I think Magic fans hungry for success know that their success is tied to what Aaron Gordon does.
All right. I think that Gordon, as I mentioned earlier, it's I feel like we've always just been kind of waiting for him to just make that leap to actually superstardom. And I'm just I feel like it can't happen until the Magic kind of turn the page around. But obviously, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
It's a chicken or an egg problem.
Okay.
What comes first? The player becoming a superstar and leading the team to victory, or the team going to victory and making a player a superstar? It really is a difficult problem to solve. And maybe Aaron Gordon, he's certainly not the guy that you put on a team and immediately the team becomes a whole lot better. It's obviously been a lot of work for Gordon to even get to this point. It took 4 years for him to have this breakout year. And the Magic, for better or for worse, kind of mussed up his development in some ways. They tried playing him out of position at small forward, which, in fairness, while I think the ultimate goal of that was wrong, because they were trying to make the playoffs and he wasn't ready for that pressure at that position. I think it did make him a better player, and I'm someone who looked at that experiment and was like, there are some things here I really like. It obviously didn't work out. It didn't help the team make the playoffs. He played a lot better when they switched him back to the 4, especially on offense. But there were some things I really liked about that experiment. And when people ask me, especially with Jonathan Isaac now on the team, what position does Aaron Gordon play? They can't play him at the 3 again. I tell them, the forward position on this team is very irrelevant. The difference between the 3 and the 4 is extremely small. Gordon is playing on the perimeter. He's doing a lot of the things he did at small forward that season. I think that year helped him improve a lot and helped him gain some skills that are helping him now that he's playing in a more fluid offensive system where the 3 and 4 really do a lot of the same things. Like Jonathan Isaac and Aaron Gordon are going to very much have similar roles no matter what you label their position. And so I think with Gordon, it was really just putting him in the right situation to succeed, letting him develop, letting him grow. That was something that he personally struggled with a lot because of injuries that kept occurring to him in the offseason. Now he's had 2 healthy summers in a row, and it's looking like he's ready to take a big leap in his game again.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, with the way the NBA is being played right now, and even with the Magic's front court depth, I mean, like, just the idea of positionless basketball really fits the Orlando Magic right now.
Yeah, and I think that's the idea that Jeff Weltman and John Hammond have is we're gonna sign guys, we're gonna bring guys in that can play multiple positions, have extremely long wingspans, and just make your life difficult defensively. You look at the players that they've acquired: Jonathan Isaac, Mohamed Bamba, Melvin Frazier, Wesley Iwundu, Jerian Grant. These are all guys. I mean, Jerian Grant maybe he's not a long-term guy, but these are all guys that you really can't pin down a position for. They do a lot of different things, and they do a lot of different things well, especially on the defensive end. Their offensive games are the big question. Who's going to create scoring? Who's going to create offense? Especially in a league that seems to be so offensively driven. But this Magic team, with all the length that they're adding, and their philosophies on how to build a team, it feels like they could be a group that is very difficult to score against, and at least that's the start of something. All
right. So now let's shift gears to the culture and fan base of the Orlando Magic. Obviously, you are a hometown kid. So just kind of explain your come up with the Orlando Magic, because as you mentioned, like, they marketed your generation as the Magic generation.
Yeah, I think the Orlando Magic have a really good relationship with the city of Orlando. I was thinking about this over the past couple days, especially with the death of Rich DeVos, the team's owner, on earlier this week. At least when we're recording this, earlier this week. The DeVos family has owned the Magic for 27 years, and you know, it's really interesting to look at and to see how they influenced the Magic and how the Magic have really influenced Orlando. This has been a team, you know, when the Magic came to Orlando, you only really came to Orlando to go to Disney. We'll be real about that.
Right.
You came to Orlando to go to Disney, and that's really about it. That's really all you did in Orlando. You never went to the city. The city was still kind of a smallish town that just happened to have this big tourist center growing. And bringing the Magic to Orlando, I think, was a transformational event in the city. It proved that this relatively small town could host a major sports franchise. And I think for a city that has a lot of transplants, that has a lot of people come and visit it, it was good to have something that we could call our own. Like, this was ours. This was our thing. This is what represented us to the world outside of Disney, obviously, outside of the theme parks, which we love the theme parks. Disney's great. I'm a UO team, but you know, Orlando needed its own identity. And I really think the Magic helped establish that identity, and especially with how quickly this franchise found success. Drafting Shaquille O'Neal in the 4th year of the franchise's existence, getting the number 1 pick in back-to-back years, going to the finals in 1995, just 6 years into the franchise's existence. It obviously, I think, spoiled Magic fans in some ways because the success seemed to come so easily. But at the same time, it also deeply embedded and rooted this team in this community, in this growing community. And as the years have gone on, Orlando has grown exponentially. Orlando is a bustling metropolis. It has its own identity. And I think the Magic are a really key part of that identity, are maybe sometimes taken for granted, especially as the team struggled over the last few years. But I think Orlando residents want the Orlando Magic to do well. They want their sports teams to do well. They want, I mean, I'm a big believer that Orlando residents, that Orlando as a city is still searching to make its mark on the world. We're a young town essentially that doesn't have the history of some of the bigger cities out there, even around Florida, like Miami or even Tampa. And we're trying to burst onto the scene, and our sports teams represent us. They represent our sort of independence from, you know, the tourism industry, from Disney, to be an independent representative of Orlando. That's why I think fans have flocked to the Orlando City soccer team, because again, this is a thing that is our own. I mean, most people didn't have MLS allegiances, and so the city, you know, it's like a college football game every time Orlando City plays, no matter how good or bad they are, and they've been pretty bad. especially this year. No matter what, the city stops to celebrate this team, and I think the Magic have a great fan base. I think they have a passionate fan base that wants to be engaged, that wants to be part of this team. They're just looking for a winner to really show up, because the NBA is a lot of games. It's hard to make every game an event, but when this team is well, Magic fans are second to none. When this team is playing really, really well, they're loud, they're passionate, they love this team. It's just a matter of getting the wins to draw them out, because there's a lot of things to do in Orlando now, and I think fans want the Magic to do well. They're very engaged, they're very passionate about this team, but they're just in a difficult time right now.
Right, and I mean, we talked about this earlier, where it's like, yes, they've been in like this downward spiral for the last 6 years or so, but before that, they've had so much success. I mean, we talked earlier, 14 playoff appearances. You guys have had trips to the NBA Finals. Unfortunately, you guys have come up unsuccessful in those. But just, I mean, for such a young franchise, you guys have seen so much success. Just that process, and now trying to get back to the top. Just what are your thoughts on that? Can you give me some more insight?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always kind of praised the Magic for being ambitious with this plan, because a lot of the Magic's success over the last few years, yeah, there's been some great planning and some shrewd moves, but a lot of it was based on lottery luck. 3 years into the franchise's existence, they win the lottery to get Shaquille O'Neal, one of the 10 greatest players in NBA history, probably. Mm-hmm. They go the next year, they get if he would have stayed healthy, a Hall of Famer in Anthony Hardaway, to be honest. Shortly after they lost both those players, they added Tracy McGrady as he was becoming a Hall of Famer. So Orlando, the Magic as a franchise, have gone from success to success to success to pretty much expansion years to Hall of Famer to, probably should be a Hall of Famer if he didn't get hurt, to another Hall of Famer, to drafting Dwight Howard and another Hall of Famer. Magic fans have experienced a ton of success. They've experienced a ton of guys who come in and define this franchise's history. And a lot of the frustration right now, like we said earlier, the Magic search for an all-star has been this organization, this franchise has not been used to building things from the ground up, to not having everything click into place perfectly. I mean, frankly, it was a tough decision between Dwight Howard and Emeka Okafor, but you'd rather have that tough decision at the number 1 pick than say at the number 6 pick, where like last year, Magic fans were debating between Dennis Smith and Jonathan Isaac. It's different quality of player there, obviously. Orlando's really struggled to find their footing. They've really struggled to get the right type of establishment, the right type of organization going. Their first attempt at it, while I applaud it for being so ambitious, wasn't executed properly. And so now Jeff Weltman and John Hammond are in here. They seem to be changing a lot of things behind the scenes that the Magic didn't have, that the Magic probably should have had to help grow the team the right way. And now we're going to see if they can put the pieces together and take this team in the right direction. And I think this year, while it won't be a playoff season, will be a season that we see the Magic take another step forward.
Right. And I mean, obviously, like, all that is just so insightful and so knowledgeable. And now I want to get into some fun little aspects into this, okay? So what can you make of Orlando Magic Twitter and Orlando Magic fans as a whole? What's that community like?
I love Magic Twitter. I absolutely love them. I interact with Magic Twitter, with Magic fans all the time. We're a little bit of a self-deprecating bunch. We understand our own history, that we've lost 2 Hall of Fame centers to the Lakers. I mean, I joke all the time that I'm a future Lakers blogger. I love, like, there's so many fun and interesting players over the course of Magic history. I love, cracking jokes about some of the random players that have played for the Magic over the years. We are not afraid to make fun of ourselves. And while I think Magic history is fascinating, and fantastic and rich and deep, and I think that the Magic's franchise history is unlike any other in the league. I really believe that. I think that for the 30 years, like you said, 14 playoff appearances, 5 division titles, 2 conference championships, we've had a really rich history, a really fun, colorful history. While we don't have the championship, there's a lot to appreciate, and I think Magic fans tend to appreciate it. They're a little impatient, like I said, because for better or for worse, I think Magic fans were a little spoiled by how easy success came to the organization. I mean, I think there are a lot of fans that simply expect success to happen. I mean, I still get, the debate going on throughout the entire year was about tanking versus culture, where a lot of fans were like, no, we got to tank. We got to get the number 1 pick. That's the only way to succeed. And my opinion was, and we'd get into heated arguments about this, I'd get in an argument, I'd be saying, we tried the tanking thing. It didn't really work. I really think we need to focus on building a culture, building a positive culture to help this team grow, and the draft pick will take care of itself. You can't control the lottery. You could have the worst record in the league and still end up with the 4th pick, and so what did tanking get you at that point? I think that these are debates that a lot of fan bases should be having about the direction of their team, and I would always tell people, like, you're not wrong. Like, I understand your point, and it is perfectly valid, but I was coming at it from a different direction, seeing what this team's gone through over the last 6 seasons. But I think Magic fans are very, very engaged with this team. They're not always showing up at the Amway Center per se, although Orlando was 16th in total attendance last year in the NBA, which is incredible for a team that's finished at the bottom of the standings. And that number maybe a little bit, obviously attendance numbers are a little bit cooked, but that number might be a little bit cooked on the Magic end because the Magic do such a good job selling their tickets to tourists. There is definitely a big tourist contingent that are Magic fans or go to Magic games while they're in Orlando, especially in January and February when Brazil and Argentina and the South American countries are on vacation. Brazil has a huge presence in the Orlando area. Orlando is actually going to be playing a Brazilian team in the preseason this year for the third time in 4 years. Wow. So it's a big market that the Magic are trying to expand to business wise. But like I said, my sense from Magic fans is they're dying for this team to win. People in Orlando want the Magic to succeed. They want this strong representative for the city, something that they can show off to the world, something that can say this is us, this is who we are, and they're dying for this team to succeed and have success. And at some point, it's going to happen. I really think that they're back on the right track. And when that does happen, we're going to see the Amway Center full of passionate fans who love this city and love this team. And I think that everyone's just kind of waiting for a reason, waiting for the team to give them a reason to show up in person and not just online.
Absolutely. And actually, you guys kind of hit the segue into what I want to get into next. So now I'm going to give you 30 seconds to a minute to pitch anybody who isn't already a fan of the Orlando Magic why they should. You can get into the roster, the players, the culture, whatever you want to. Go ahead.
It's 3 letters. It's the victorious BIG, Bamba, Isaac, and Gordon. I think that the Magic are just a fun team and a fun organization. Like I said, we're a self-deprecating bunch. We don't take our team too seriously, but we're passionate. We're extremely passionate group about our teams and about our city. I mean, I hope I've conveyed how much of a cheerleader I am for the city. I mean, I don't know if this is on video or not. I'm wearing my Orlando United shirt. We're a very close-knit community. We're a welcoming community, both as a city and I think as a fan base. I think Orlando fans, and again, this goes back to my kind of theories about Orlando wanting to have its own identity, really. Orlando fans want attention. We want people to notice us. We want to be noticed for the right things. And so we go about bringing people into our flock and bringing people into our fandom, welcoming everyone and cheering hard for our team and cheering for our team to do things the right way. I mean, I think that's ultimately what all these debates about rebuilding are about is we want this Magic team to be great. We expect greatness from them. It's not just about making the playoffs. It's about winning championships. That's ultimately what we want. But at the same time, we're extremely passionate and supportive of our group. I mean, we think that this is a great place to be, and so obviously we're very supportive of our team.
That is incredibly well said and a perfect way to wrap this up. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of Why You Should Root for Every NBA Team featuring the Orlando Magic and Philip Rossman-Reich of the OrlandoMagicDaily.com, the site expert over there. Also host of the Locked On Magic podcast. You can follow on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Philip, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And with that, we're going to get up out of here. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below for more videos in this series. And with that, we'll catch you next time. Thank you all so much for checking out today's video. If you are new here, click the video right above my head. It's going to give you all the details about the Popcorn Entertainment Network. If you want to see the latest video from this series, click the upper left-hand corner and be sure to check all the boxes down to the left of me. That includes subscribing, get your butt in the bucket. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Hit that like button, share it with a friend, Interact with us down below in the comments section. And last but not least, check out our website, popcornent.com, where we post all new and exclusive content. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media at popcornentnet on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, we'll see you next time.